I'm Terry Belanger, founding director of Rare Book School. Rare Book School developed out of a program at the Columbia School of Library Service, specializing in rare book curatorship and antiquarian bookselling, a master's level program, part of a master's program in the library school. And Rare Book School really started simply as a collection of courses that would be of service to the students in that master's program. They were non-credit courses, but intensive. The first Rare Book School was in 1983, and it consisted of 8 courses, each of which was taught by a team of 2 people, because at the time I thought that one person could not teach at this level for 6 hours a day for 5 days straight. So the program established itself pretty firmly over the 9 years that it was at Columbia, repeating some courses, starting new courses, continuing to use not only current students in the master's program of the school, but also students who had graduated in recent years who wanted to come back and to learn something more about binding or illustration or bibliography than what they'd been able to get in the one-year master's program that they'd recently graduated from. We got a lot of support from the School of Library Service at Columbia, which was the oldest library school in the world and certainly one of the most distinguished. But in the late 80s, it began to look as if Columbia was not willing to support the School of Library Service at Columbia any longer. And beginning in 1989, I had advance warning from a mole who was on a Central University committee that the library school was going to be forced to leave its quarters in Butler Library, the main university library at Columbia. I was pretty sure that the school was not going to survive a move out of Butler Library. And in the late 90s, I began quietly looking for another place to take myself and the school. So we knew in the spring of 1990 that our last academic year would be 1991-92, and we stopped admitting new students. I was able to find a number of institutions that were willing to engage in a conversation with me about where Rare Book School and I might go. Among those was the Smithsonian, UCLA, Brown University, and the University of Virginia. The University of Virginia invited me to come down and just talk in 1990. It was very convenient and very coincidental that during my trip in August 1990, I was able to say that, as it happened, I had been invited to give an evening lecture to the Friends of the UVA Library in early November, and that if our conversations prospered, then we could continue them then. Between August, when I was there, and November, when I was there again, the wheels moved. And by the time I got there in November, I was invited to shake hands with the provost and to sit next to the then president of the university, John Castine, at dinner at the Friends meeting, and it was all set. Virginia could not have happened without Columbia. We could not be as good as we now are without Virginia. I was invited to stay at Columbia in 1992 and to continue Rare Book School at Columbia. I had a Columbia PhD. I'd been there since 1963. I was a pretty well-known quantity. But it seemed sensible to make the break. And in the event, so far as Rare Book School is concerned, it was certainly the wisest thing I ever did. The extent to which the university supports Rare Book School really has to be seen to be believed. There are a number of aspects of Rare Book School that were, and by and large are, unique. To me, the combination of courses, all of which are offered by competitive entrants to a small number of people with the best person in the field teaching the course and a large pile of stuff on the table between the instructor and the dozen students, is a goal often hoped for but seldom achieved. And Rare Book School routinely achieves exactly that. The best person in the field, 12 students and a lot of stuff under congenial circumstances. And I can add, more recently, heavily subsidized by the school, so that typically a third or more of students in our courses are heavily subsidized by Rare Book School in order that they can attend. So that was one unique aspect of Rare Book School. A second unique aspect of the school was the evaluation structure. It began almost at the beginning of the school by the late 90s, by the late 80s, well before we left Columbia. It was well established. At the end of the week, students were informed of their obligation to fill out a 3 or 4 page evaluation, which consisted of a number of questions that they were to write prose answers to. We then took the questionnaires and edited them for spelling and published them in their entirety without further editing, so that if a student had had a bad time at Rare Book School and wished to trash either the course or the instructor or fellow students, there was an opportunity to do so. In the 80s, it didn't make so much difference because the evaluations, though they were sent to the students who attended courses, were not really public. But beginning in 1995, we took all of the evaluations and put them online. And there they have sat ever since. It didn't take long before prospective students in Rare Book School courses read the evaluations of the courses that they proposed to take with considerable interest, because this is where they learned, as it were, that the course was definitely about French and definitely not about German, or that it would not begin until 1800, or it would not continue after 1640. The advantage of this is that you had students who wanted to be where they were when the course proceeded. The result also was that the people who did get into the course wanted to be there, and therefore were very glad indeed to meet the other people who were in that course, who were, after all, in the course for the same reasons. Picture this. Your field is 19th century cloth American bookbindings. You are passionate about 19th century American bookbindings. Your spouse typically is not. Your colleagues of work almost certainly are not. But they have to put up with you. And spouse and colleagues might give you half an hour a week for you to bore them on the subject of 19th century cloth bookbindings. Fast forward to Rare Book School, where the best person in the field is teaching the course, Sue Allen, and the other dozen or 11 students in the course are all there able to talk freely about 19th century cloth bookbindings in an environment where people can't wait to listen to what they have to say about them. Working at Rare Book School, I think, was largely an enjoyable experience for staff. It meant that they were in close contact with the best people in a number of fields that they typically were interested in, or they wouldn't have come my way in the first place. And the esprit de corps was very high. The Rare Book School staff is constantly praised in the evaluations because they've often routinely gone out of their way to be of assistance to students who, remember, though they are 37 on average and know what they are doing, have typically come a long way and they are in a strange place. When Rare Book School started as an adjunct of the master's program at Columbia, of course it had no outside establishment or advisory group. It had the germ of one when the Friends of Rare Book School got started, but the Friends of Rare Book School never had a board. It was basically just a bank account and somebody who was spending it. When we went to not-for-profit tax-exempt status in 2002, we had to have a board of directors. It was at that point that I made the decision to make Rare Book School permanent. We could never have our own building. And it's hard to persuade people that a school like Rare Book School should continue if they don't know how it operates, if it doesn't have something tangible that needs saving. To say that the school often succeeds in being the best of its kind in the world is not something that people pay much attention to unless they're in the field. But to say that you have a uniquely important teaching collection has some value. To protect that collection and to encourage the continuation of the school if I got run over by a bus, I set up an informal board, and that met annually in New York City. And it was the nucleus of the board that was formally established in 2002 when we achieved 501c3 status. Rare Book School has a very good board these days and a much richer, financially richer board than I had. I had a wisdom board. Rare Book School has a wealth and wisdom board, which are the best kind. And long may it continue.